What if I told you that the very breath you're taking right now contains the seeds of your greatest triumph? What if every failure you've endured was merely the universe's way of preparing you for unprecedented success? What if the key to transforming your entire existence lies not in changing your circumstances, but in changing the fundamental assumption you make about reality itself? My friend, I am Napoleon Hill, and I have spent my lifetime studying the minds of the most successful individuals who ever walked this earth. I have sat with Andrew Carnegie, spoken with Henry Ford, analyzed the thoughts of Thomas Edison, and what I discovered will shatter everything you believe about success, failure, and the nature of reality itself. But before we journey together into this transformative understanding, I need you to pause. I need you to look at your life right now and ask yourself this piercing question. Are you living as if everything always works out for you, or are you constantly braced for disappointment? Your answer to this question will determine whether you spend the rest of your days in mediocrity or rise to claim the extraordinary life that is your birthright. If you're ready to step into a new reality, if you're prepared to act as if everything always works out, then write in the comments below, "I will be better now." Because what we're about to explore together will require courage. It will demand that you abandon the comfortable familiarity of doubt and embrace a truth so powerful that it can reshape the very fabric of your existence. You see, my dear friend, most people live their lives backwards. They wait for evidence before they believe. They demand proof before they act. They require guarantees before they commit. But here's what I learned from studying over 500 of the most successful people in human history. They understood a secret that transforms ordinary mortals into titans of achievement. They discovered that reality is not fixed, that circumstances are not permanent, and that the universe itself conspires to support those who dare to act as if everything always works out. This is not positive thinking. This is not wishful fantasy. This is the fundamental operating principle of reality itself. When you truly grasp this concept, when you begin to live as if everything always works out, you don't just change your attitude, you literally alter the quantum field of possibilities that surrounds you. You become a magnet for the very outcomes you desire most deeply. Consider for a moment the profound implications of this truth. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can approach your day with the assumption that obstacles will arise, that people will disappoint you, that circumstances will work against you, or you can wake up with the unshakable conviction that today, like every day, everything is working out in your favor, even when appearances suggest otherwise. The difference between these two approaches is not merely psychological, it's metaphysical. When you act as if everything always works out, you tap into what I call the mastermind principle of the universe itself. You align yourself with the creative force that governs all existence, the same force that causes seeds to grow into mighty trees, that transforms caterpillars into butterflies, that turns coal into diamonds under pressure. But I know what you're thinking. You're saying, "Napoleon, how can I act as if everything works out when I'm drowning in debt? How can I believe everything is working in my favor when I've been rejected again and again? How can I maintain this attitude when the evidence of my senses tells me otherwise?" Let me share with you a story that will illuminate this principle in a way that will forever change how you perceive challenges and setbacks. This is the story of a young man named David, whose life seemed destined for failure, but who discovered the secret we're exploring today and used it to transform not just his own existence, but the lives of millions of others. David was born into poverty in a small town where dreams went to die. His father had abandoned the family when David was 7 years old, leaving his mother to raise 3 children on a seamstress's wages. By the time David turned 16, he had failed at school, been fired from 3 different jobs, and seemed destined to repeat the cycle of poverty that had trapped his family for generations. But David possessed something that most people lack, an unshakable belief that everything always works out. Even when bill collectors came to the door, even when there was no food in the refrigerator, even when his mother cried herself to sleep worrying about their future, David maintained an almost supernatural optimism. He didn't just hope things would get better, he acted as if they already were getting better. While his friends complained about their circumstances, David spent his evenings reading books about successful people. While others watched television, David visualized himself living the life of his dreams. While his peers accepted their limitations, David began acting as if he were already the successful person he intended to become. This was not mere pretense or delusion. David understood intuitively what modern quantum physics has now proven, that consciousness creates reality, that the observer affects the observed, that the very act of expecting a certain outcome increases the probability of that outcome manifesting. When David applied for his 4th job, he didn't approach the interview as a desperate young man begging for a chance. He walked into that office as if he were already an invaluable asset to the company. as if hiring him was the most obvious decision the employer could make. He dressed not just nicely, but as if he were already successful. He spoke not with the uncertainty of youth, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knew, absolutely knew, that everything always works out. The employer later said that something about David was different from all the other applicants. There was an energy about him, a certainty that was magnetic. David got the job, but more importantly, he got something far more valuable, confirmation that acting as if everything always works out actually causes everything to work out. But David's story doesn't end there. Within 6 months, he had been promoted. Within a year, he was managing other employees. Within 3 years, he had saved enough money to start his own business. But here's the remarkable part. At every step of his journey, David faced obstacles that would have stopped most people cold. His first business partner stole money from the company. Instead of seeing this as evidence that things don't work out, David saw it as the universe's way of teaching him to choose partners more carefully. The experience led him to meet Sarah, who became not only his business partner, but eventually his wife and the mother of his children. When the economy crashed and his second business failed, instead of giving up, David saw this as an opportunity to create something even better. The failure forced him to develop new skills, to think more creatively, to build a business model that was recession-proof. His third venture made him wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. When David was diagnosed with a serious illness at the age of 45, he approached his treatment with the same unwavering belief that everything always works out. He didn't just fight the disease, he acted as if his recovery was inevitable, as if the illness itself was simply redirecting him toward an even greater purpose. And indeed it was. During his recovery, David wrote a book about his life philosophy, about the power of acting as if everything always works out. That book became an international bestseller and helped millions of people transform their own lives. The illness that could have destroyed him became the catalyst for his greatest contribution to humanity. You see, my friend, David's story illustrates the profound truth that I discovered in my research. When you truly act as if everything always works out, you don't eliminate challenges from your life. You transform your relationship with challenges. You begin to see every obstacle as an opportunity, every setback as a setup for something greater, every closed door as the universe's way of directing you toward the right door. This is not about denial or ignoring reality. This is about understanding that there are levels of reality and that the highest level, the one that ultimately determines all outcomes, is governed by consciousness, by belief, by the fundamental assumptions we make about the nature of existence itself. When Thomas Edison's laboratory burned down, destroying years of work and millions of dollars in equipment, he didn't despair. He told his son to go get his mother and bring her quickly because she would never again see a fire like this one. The next morning, Edison was already making plans to rebuild, acting as if the fire had simply cleared the way for something better. And indeed, the new laboratory he built was superior in every way to the one that had burned down. When Henry Ford was told by experts that his horseless carriage would never replace the horse and buggy, he didn't argue with them or try to convince them they were wrong. He simply acted as if his vision was inevitable, as if the success of the automobile was already guaranteed. He proceeded with such certainty that investors began to share his vision, workers began to catch his enthusiasm, and the entire world eventually aligned with his belief. This is the power of acting as if everything always works out. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about operating from a fundamental assumption that the universe is friendly, that life is conspiring in your favor, that every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is ultimately working toward your highest good. But how do you develop this kind of unshakable faith? How do you maintain this attitude when the evidence seems to contradict it? How do you act as if everything always works out when you're facing the darkest moments of your life? The answer lies in understanding the true nature of time and consciousness. Most people live as slaves to their past, prisoners of their current circumstances, victims of their fears about the future. But when you act as if everything always works out, you begin to live from the future you're creating rather than from the past you're trying to escape. This requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as a river that carries you helplessly toward an uncertain future, you begin to see time as a tool that you can use to create the reality you desire. You start making decisions not based on your current circumstances, but based on the person you're becoming and the life you're creating. When you wake up in the morning, instead of asking what problems will I face today, you ask what miracles will unfold today. Instead of wondering what if things go wrong, you wonder what amazing opportunities will present themselves today. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you give thanks for what's already on its way to you. This shift in perspective is not just psychological, it's neurological. Modern neuroscience has proven that the brain cannot distinguish between an experience that is vividly imagined and one that is actually lived. When you consistently act as if everything always works out, you literally rewire your brain to look for evidence that supports this belief. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there but were invisible to your doubt-focused consciousness. More importantly, when you act as if everything always works out, you begin to emit a different energy, a different vibration. People are naturally drawn to those who possess unshakable optimism, who radiate the confidence that comes from knowing that success is inevitable. Opportunities begin to flow toward you because you've become the kind of person that opportunities seek out. But here's the most profound aspect of this principle. When you truly act as if everything always works out, you discover that it's not just a belief or a strategy, it's actually the fundamental truth about reality itself. The universe is not neutral, it's not indifferent to your success or failure. The creative force that governs all existence is biased in favor of growth, expansion, and the fulfillment of potential. Every seed contains within it the programming to become a mighty tree. Every acorn carries the blueprint of an oak. Every human being possesses within their consciousness the template for extraordinary achievement. When you act as if everything always works out, you're not creating something artificial. You're aligning with the natural order of creation itself. This is why throughout history, every great achievement began with someone who acted as if their vision was inevitable long before there was any evidence to support it. The Wright brothers acted as if human flight was possible when everyone else knew it was impossible. Marie Curie acted as if she could unlock the secrets of radioactivity when the scientific establishment dismissed her work. Martin Luther King Jr. acted as if equality was inevitable when the evidence suggested otherwise. They weren't being naive or unrealistic. They were tapping into a deeper truth about reality, a truth that transcends the apparent limitations of current circumstances. They understood that the future is not fixed, that reality is fluid, and that consciousness has the power to shape outcomes through the simple but profound act of expecting success. Now let me share with you the practical application of this principle, because understanding is worthless without implementation. Acting as if everything always works out requires 3 fundamental shifts in how you approach life. First, you must shift from being reactive to being creative. Most people spend their days reacting to circumstances, responding to problems, managing crises. When you act as if everything always works out, you become proactive in creating the experiences you desire. You stop waiting for permission from circumstances and start giving yourself permission to succeed. Second, you must shift from focusing on how to focusing on what and why. When you're clear about what you want and why you want it, and you act as if achieving it is inevitable, the how begins to reveal itself naturally. The universe has infinite ways to bring about the outcomes you desire, but most people get stuck trying to figure out the how before they've clearly defined the what and why. Third, you must shift from seeking evidence to creating evidence. Instead of waiting for proof that you can succeed, you begin acting in ways that create proof of your inevitable success. You dress for the job you want, not the job you have. You speak with the confidence of someone who knows their value. You make decisions based on where you're going, not where you've been. Let me tell you what happened when David, the young man in our story, fully embraced these 3 shifts. Remember, David had already achieved significant success by acting as if everything always works out, but his greatest triumph was yet to come. At the age of 50, David was approached by a group of investors who wanted him to take over a failing company. This wasn't just any company, it was the largest employer in his hometown, the same town where he had grown up in poverty. The company was hemorrhaging money, employees were demoralized, and every expert predicted its inevitable collapse. Most people would have seen this as a guaranteed failure, a reputation-destroying mistake, but David saw it differently. He saw it as the universe presenting him with the opportunity to transform not just a company, but an entire community. He saw it as the chance to prove on a massive scale that acting as if everything always works out can create miracles. David took the job, but he didn't approach it as someone trying to fix a broken company. He approached it as someone who already knew the company would not only survive, but thrive. He walked into that first company meeting and spoke to the employees not as a desperate CEO pleading for their help, but as a confident leader, sharing his vision of their inevitable success. He didn't focus on the problems, though he acknowledged them. He focused on the possibilities. He didn't dwell on the company's history of failure. He painted a vivid picture of its future success. He didn't ask employees to hope for the best. He invited them to act as if the company's turnaround was already guaranteed. The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, employee morale had improved dramatically. Within a year, the company was profitable again. Within 3 years, it had become the most successful company in its industry. But more importantly, David had proven that the principle of acting as if everything always works out could be applied not just to individual success, but to collective transformation. The employees didn't just change their attitude about the company, they changed their entire approach to life. They began acting as if everything always worked out in their personal lives as well. Marriages improved, children performed better in school, the entire community began to thrive in ways that economists couldn't explain using traditional models. This is the ripple effect of living as if everything always works out. It's not just about personal success, it's about becoming a catalyst for transformation in every life you touch. When you radiate the confidence that comes from knowing that the universe is conspiring in your favor, you give others permission to believe the same thing about their own lives. But let me address the question that I know is burning in your mind. What about when things genuinely go wrong? What about when you face real tragedy, genuine loss, circumstances that seem to contradict the idea that everything always works out? This is where the principle reveals its true power. Acting as if everything always works out doesn't mean that painful experiences won't occur. It means that even the most difficult circumstances contain within them the seeds of transformation, growth, and eventual triumph. When David's wife Sarah was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 58, he faced the greatest test of his philosophy. Here was a situation that seemed to mock the idea that everything always works out. Here was evidence that the universe was not friendly, that life was not conspiring in his favor. But David understood something that most people miss. Acting as if everything always works out doesn't mean acting as if bad things never happen. It means acting as if every experience, even the most painful ones, are ultimately serving your highest good in ways that may not be immediately apparent. David didn't pretend that Sarah's cancer was good news. He didn't try to convince himself or anyone else that they should be happy about the diagnosis, but he did act as if their response to this challenge would ultimately strengthen them, bring them closer together, and serve some greater purpose that they couldn't yet see. He acted as if Sarah's recovery was not just possible but inevitable. He spoke to her doctors not as a desperate husband begging for hope, but as a partner in creating the miracle of her healing. He researched treatment options not from a place of fear, but from a place of absolute certainty that they would find the right path forward. Most importantly, he helped Sarah herself act as if everything was working out perfectly, even in the midst of chemotherapy, even during the darkest moments when the future seemed uncertain. They made plans for their post-recovery life. They talked about the book Sarah would write about her experience. They acted as if her illness was simply a chapter in a larger story that would ultimately have a triumphant ending, and it did. Sarah not only recovered completely, but her experience with cancer led her to become a counselor for other cancer patients, helping them develop the same unshakable optimism that had carried her through her own healing journey. The crisis that could have destroyed them became the catalyst for their greatest contribution to others. This is the ultimate truth about acting as if everything always works out. It doesn't eliminate challenges, it transforms them into opportunities. It doesn't prevent difficult experiences, it ensures that those experiences serve your growth and evolution rather than your destruction. You see, the universe operates on a principle that most people never grasp. Every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is designed to move you closer to the full expression of your potential. When you act as if everything always works out, you align yourself with this principle. You begin to see every experience through the lens of growth rather than the lens of victimhood. This requires tremendous courage because it asks you to trust in a benevolent intelligence that you cannot see, to have faith in an order that transcends your current understanding, to act with confidence even when the evidence seems to contradict your actions. But here's what I discovered in my research. Every person who has achieved extraordinary success has demonstrated this kind of courage. They have all, in their own way, acted as if everything always works out. They have proceeded with confidence even when others doubted. They have maintained optimism even when circumstances seemed hopeless. They have trusted in their vision even when the path forward was unclear. This is not about being unrealistic or naive. This is about understanding that reality has layers, and that the deepest layer, the one that ultimately determines all outcomes, is consciousness itself. When you change your fundamental assumption about reality from life as a struggle to everything always works out, you don't just change your perspective, you change your destiny. The practical application of this principle begins with a simple but profound decision. The decision to act as if everything always works out, regardless of current circumstances, regardless of past experiences, regardless of what others think or say or believe. This decision will be tested. Life will present you with situations that seem to contradict your new assumption. People will call you foolish or unrealistic. Your own mind will sometimes doubt the wisdom of your choice, but if you persist, if you continue to act as if everything always works out even when appearances suggest otherwise, you will begin to experience what I call the miracle of assumption becoming reality. Your actions will begin to align with your assumption. Your decisions will reflect your belief that success is inevitable. Your energy will attract opportunities that confirm your expectations. Your persistence will outlast the temporary obstacles that discourage those who lack your faith in the ultimate goodness of existence. Remember David's story, but remember that David's story is not unique. It's the story of every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary. It's the story of everyone who has ever transformed their life from ordinary to outstanding. It's potentially your story if you have the courage to act as if everything always works out. The time for half measures is over. The time for hoping and wishing and trying is past. The time has come for you to step into the full power of your consciousness, to embrace the truth that you are a creative force in the universe, to begin acting as if everything always works out because that is the fundamental nature of reality itself. This is not a technique to try. This is a way of being to embrace. This is not a strategy to experiment with. This is a truth to embody. This is not a philosophy to consider. This is a reality to live. When you truly act as if everything always works out, you discover that you're not trying to convince the universe to support you. You're simply aligning with the support that was always there. You're not trying to create success. You're allowing the success that is your birthright to flow through you. You're not trying to overcome obstacles. You're recognizing that obstacles are simply the universe's way of making you strong enough to handle the success that's coming. The choice is yours. You can continue to live as if success is uncertain, as if the universe is indifferent to your dreams, as if you must struggle and fight and force your way to achievement. Or you can begin today to act as if everything always works out, as if success is inevitable, as if the entire cosmos is conspiring to fulfill your deepest desires. I have given you the key that unlocks the door to extraordinary achievement. I have shared with you the secret that transforms ordinary people into legends. I have revealed to you the principle that can revolutionize not just your results, but your entire experience of being alive. But knowledge without action is worthless. Understanding without implementation is powerless. The most profound truth in the world cannot help you if you do not apply it to your daily life. So I challenge you now. Make the decision to act as if everything always works out. Make this decision not just intellectually, but with every fiber of your being. Make it not just for today, but for the rest of your life. Make it not just when circumstances are favorable, but especially when they seem to be against you. Act as if everything always works out because, my friend, everything always does work out for those who dare to live this truth. The universe is waiting for you to claim your inheritance of success, abundance, and joy. The only question is, will you have the courage to act as if you deserve it? Will you have the faith to believe that everything always works out? Will you have the persistence to maintain this belief even when tested? Your extraordinary life is not a distant possibility. It's an inevitable reality waiting for you to step into it. Act as if everything always works out, and watch as everything begins to work out in ways that will astound you, inspire you, and transform you into the magnificent being you were always meant to become. If this message has resonated with your soul, if you feel the stirring of possibility within your heart, if you're ready to step into a new reality where everything always works out, then I invite you to make a declaration right now. Write in the comments below, "I will be better now." Let this be your commitment to yourself, your promise to the universe, your first step into the extraordinary life that awaits you. The time for waiting is over. The time for doubting is past. The time for acting as if everything always works out is now. Your transformation begins with your decision to believe, continues with your commitment to act, and culminates with your willingness to persist until your assumption becomes your reality. Everything always works out for those who act as if it does. Today you begin to discover the magnificent truth of this principle in your own life. Today you choose to act as if everything always works out. Today your extraordinary life begins.